Hey, Hardin County, this is Michelle Lavis. I'm here to report on the April 15th Commissioner meeting. I got there, I don't know, I don't think it was too late. I don't know. Sometimes I get there after the pending. And the commissioners were gone. Deb said that they were over looking at the annex building, which is by the city building. The city has asked them to replace the fence. There's a chain link fence that runs along Detroit Street there, kind of by the surplus store on the other side. And it's not historically accurate. They wanted something that looked a little bit nicer. And so evidently they were over there looking at that. I walked out there to look and didn't see them. And that's when I walked over behind Detroit Street there to look at the TDH building updates. So kind of used my time to do something while they were finishing up. So by the time I got back, they were already back in the office. Amber Cronley came in for JFS. And she didn't sound too excited. It sounds like, JFS is a huge department to deal with, and it just sounds like maybe they're going through a rough time. I did go back and look at other meeting notes for the month of March to see just things that I miss, or things that get signed that I don't know about. And they are still hiring people, but some of the people that they've hired have now left, and so they just have this kind of this turnaround. And I know when she came in maybe a year ago, that was one of her things, was doing exit interviews and finding out where kind of the problems are with employment. It's a hard job, but so I was sad to see that. The other thing is they go through all their statistics. Their food assistance was 1,600 families. They helped 126 individuals with cash. They had 10 abuse investigations for adults. Their transport that they've been doing is there's 131 individuals using the transport option, and there's 878 one-way trips. So obviously these 131 individuals are using it multiple times. There are 641 people eligible to use the transportation. So kind of gives you some numbers of percentages of people that are using it. She talked about the PRC plan. 13 individuals are using that. They got a fraud investigator hired, and they have 7 new claims, and they are currently meeting with the prosecutor's office to see how you go through the channels to investigate these and then take them to court and those kinds of things, because they've not had a fraud investigator maybe, and so this is a new process for them. And I'm really excited. That's a good thing, because it's expensive enough we don't want people just taking money. So they are working with Ohio Means Jobs. They got let's see, I wrote 23 individuals dislocated, but that can't be. 42 youth, they're helping 11 people get their GED. So I think those are job opportunities. So anyways, those are kind of new things. So the transport, the PRC plan, the fraud, those kinds of things are kind of new things. I really see Amber, from when she started, trying to make up ground and, kind of pushing and moving into other directions. She's making a little headway, but then kind of the anvil drops. So then she started talking about the kids portion, and there's 83 allegations of abuse. 31 were investigated. They have 31 kids in custody at this time. Several of them are permanent custody. And they spent $123,000 a month last month on services, right? One kid uses $40,000 a month of services, very difficult behavior problems. It kind of sounds like maybe these people aren't in necessarily local. They're having to reach out maybe further and further to find services for these people. They are looking at kind of a coalition of Allen and Auglaize to kind of I don't know, be able to share, kind of in those places, but definitely they're trying in Hardin County to ramp up foster care, and you have to prove that you can't house kids here so that they can then be housed other places. So kind of the situation they find themselves in, they have to kind of go through this process, and Amber made it very clear that there are problems all over Ohio. This is not just Hardin County. This is the pricing for foster families is, you can't really control that cost, and so it's just going up and up and up and up. So they spent the $123,000 last month. Their money's all but gone. They've got $35,000 left in the bank, and so the month of March is paid for. But April, May, and June is the next quarter that they don't have any money for, and they don't get their new funding until July. So pretty much Amber was very nice. She's very professional. Came in and was like, we've used all our money. These expenses are out of our control, and we're politely asking the commissioners to either pay monthly to care for these children, or quarterly. So monthly would be they're asking for $150,000 because they never know exactly what the cost is going to be per month, or $500,000 for the quarter, and then they would just refund kind of what they have left at the end. So certainly not a situation you want to find yourselves in. You're looking at a $2 million to kind of house these 31 kids, let alone if you get any more kids in. It certainly would be worth, I think, a commissioner to really dive in and understand, what other things can be done, or, what is some other things happening in our community that they could help support JFS in, especially the the marketing of their new campaign to get housing. So anyways, it's not something that you want to be on the back end of. You want to kind of get ahead of it, know what the problems are, and but again, it's kind of out of her hands, and kudos for her for trudging through this. It'd be very difficult. So so she came in, then Allie Redman and Chelsea Ward came in from Corsa. One of them is from FLR Insurance here in town. The other one is from Columbus. And evidently we are part of a coalition, insurance coalition. We've been part of that coalition since 1989. So we are very steadfast. I don't know if anybody's ever questioned the coalition, or it very well could be the best that we can get in Ohio, but kind of an easy sale if you've been in it for this long. It's liability insurance. It was really interesting. One, the commissioners don't really ask any questions. Of course, they've been through this a couple times, but I've also seen in other salespeople that have come in, different insurances, health insurance, and they don't ask questions then either. They kind of just pay the bills. So when you talk about Hardin Hills, right, I've had a long-term theory that the reason Hardin Hills closed was because of insurance. We had 80 employees out there to carry health insurance on, which I don't know, if that's a big deal. It's certainly a cost. And then this liability on the building was definitely a big deal, and they really did talk about it quite a bit. They mentioned Hardin Hills a lot. I mean, if you are an insurance person, I would love for you to go back and watch the video and maybe be able to explain that a little better of kind of what they're talking about. But people across the board, the coalition has seen increases of, up to 10% to 25%, kind of per pod. And our increase this year was only 3.52%, which of course they mentioned taking Hardin Hills off there made a huge difference, right? And so that's why they only increased a little bit. They So some other things that they talked about the actual policy is because they have been long-term kind of flagship members, they did get like a $27,000 of refunds, dividends back to the members, $3,000 back in cash. They're increasing cybersecurity, right? So that's the new thing that they're really pushing right now. And there's going to be a $5,500 worth of reimbursements. So I'm not an insurance person. I just have kind of my personal insurance that we deal with, but they use these reimbursements. So, you spend money to better protect yourself. They talked about the reimbursements for the body cameras for the sheriff. I think he got $7,500 right back to help pay for some of the body cameras. And it always sounds like a savings. Oh, it's a savings, you got this money back, but we did spend, a lot of money for these body cameras. So in the end, you really are spending more to save a little to offset your premium for your insurance by a little, right? So instead of a 10% increase, we're only going to give you an 8% increase. So the numbers just are not good mathing numbers, in my opinion, but that is the insurance world. They are adding ransom in for the insurance, so you're going to have a $2 million ransom included. So like if you get your computer hacked and you have to pay a ransom to get your computer undone, or maybe people think that their computer's hacked and it's just a scam, and then they call in and they're kind of giving the money to the scammers, and then the insurance is going to pay for that. I don't know. That's kind of I'm not sure the details of that. So the other thing that they said was the deductible. They have a $2,500 deductible for auto, which the coalition members were like, we want to keep that $2,500 for the auto, and they're going to increase the property deductible to $5,000. I mean, there's really nothing you can do about it. That's what the coalition says you to do. So unless you're going to question the coalition, you just kind of have to do whatever. They did mention at the end of the meeting that this was an easy meeting. She hopes that all the rest of her meetings go this well. And, when you only have a 3.5% increase, what's there to complain about? Although you're not going to get that again next year, because your liability, the Hardin Hills is, kind of done all their reduction that it's going to do. So how this plays into Hardin Hills is that, my suspicion is that because the fire pump wasn't actually red tagged, in my opinion, I saw no evidence that it was actually red tagged or out of service. And I think that maybe somehow it came back to insurance that said, we're going to raise your rates if you don't have updated equipment or whatever. And so then that caused trouble with the fire pump. And then most recently, and then possibly again, right? So it's this July 1st is when the insurance rates change. And so back when they closed Hardin Hills, they they wanted to close it earlier so that it'd be done by July 1st. They got delayed by a couple weeks, which put them a couple weeks after July 1st, but they were pushing that July 1st deadline, and they wouldn't tell us why. And so, but you could tell that there was something important about July 1st. And in all the things that we researched, there was nothing really definitive. And that's part of this insurance thing that you start saying, I think this is insurance related. And again, so they did get everybody, the residents out by July 1st. And then we saw again a month ago or 2 weeks ago, well, kind of a month ago, this sort of push of, hey, we got to get this stuff out. You can't have, health department can't have your stuff here anymore. We have to get these public records out. We have to get them off to another building, even though that building is not the most ideal. We got to get, and you have this, and then we got barriers out in the driveway, and just strange things that are happening, and really no explanation. Just people drive by, they see it. I hear things in different meetings, and nobody's explaining anything. They're not explaining it in the Hardin Hills meetings. You're not hearing it between chatter between the commissioners. And again, we have these deadline that to make it an abandoned building, right? So the insurance is coming back and saying, in order to have an abandoned building, this is what you have to do. You have to put up permanent barriers. I would think that an abandoned building, you could get rid of the water and gas and utilities. Now they are keeping that on because Vancrest still has an option to that land, and so until that expires, they're wanting to keep that just in case something happens. They have utilities out there, but insurance is saying, okay, everything that you can do to make this building less costly, let's do that. And so that's been the whole push this whole time, which I don't think is a bad thing. My ultimate question for Hardin Hills is, why couldn't they just tell us? We've been asking for a year to explain these timelines, like why are things happening at Hardin Hills, and what's driving this, because we know it's not driven by normal everyday logic type things. There's something pushing it, and all they could have told us a year ago that it was insurance. That's my theory. They could have addressed the barriers in the driveway. They could have had a conversation with the insurance people, or with Sharon Houston last week, that said, we're wrapping this all up because we're trying to save money on our insurance. And it would have cleared up a whole bunch of questions. So anyways, I don't know why they're scared to tell us that they're trying to save money. Not necessarily on residents or salaries or those kind of things. They're just trying to save money on insurance, and I'm assuming that they're saving they're able to maintain their own personal insurance and what they already have with kind of the same price point. But if the rumors are true and they're going to buy that school, that old school administration building, now you're going to be adding that to the insurance. So, are we trying to save money on insurance or not? We just need a straight answer. So that's my Hardin Hills rant about the insurance. And I think that was pretty much, we had a CDBG public hearing. It's basically the Community Development Building Grant. Mark Dahl comes in, they're required to have 2 hearings. So this is the first one, it's very general. They will have another hearing later that kind of gets into the actual projects, and then they will be set for the year to continue to work through those grant processes. I did sit down with Mark and several times I've talked to him and got this kind of layout of what it looks like to get grants. And so I'm going to put together some information with that and share with you because it's a lot of work. So definitely a lot of work. And then at 11:30, Brad Bailey and Michael Bacon and Tyler Software Company went into executive session. It would be G3. I did not say for that. Believe that this might be the company that we had doing we were going to roll over from kind of a green screen DOS type of accounting system to a Windows-based system. And so they had been working towards moving that over. It didn't go so well. And we stopped using that company. So it could be about that. I can't tell you for sure that was the Tyler software. But I do know in the auditor's office that they went from, they were not happy with the changeover of the system and canceled their contract with them. So anyways, so we didn't stay for that. We went on to do bigger and better things. And I hope you guys had a great week. We're having a great week. And we have another meeting tomorrow. I have a sick kid, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. And actually, there's nothing on the schedule. So that's kind of it. I know this is a long update, but sometimes that's what it is. I hope you guys are doing great. There's a lot of information in this. If you made it all the way to the end, kudos to you. And I will count you as an informed citizen. All right, have a good one. Bye.